Hi, this is Lynn Modishon from Modishon's Herbals, and tonight's Wisdom from Gran is going to be talking about wildcrafting. We've got spring coming up in 10 days. The vernal equinox will be on Saturday, I believe, the 20th, and today felt beautiful. It was very spring-like weather today. And the trees and some of the plants are starting to bud, and so it's time to start thinking about wildcrafting. So wildcrafting is the practice of gathering plants and herbs and bark from the wild. If the term makes you think of pioneer images of the American frontier, that is certainly accurate. Wildcrafting has been going on since the beginning of time. Daniel Boone, interestingly enough, both made and lost a fortune on ginseng. So that was interesting to me. Because I didn't. I mean, there is American ginseng, but I guess when I think of ginseng, I always think of Asian health practices. But so that was a fun fact to find. The ethical wildcrafting can be done for edible plants, for medicinal plants, and magical and cosmetic purposes. It's also known as foraging, and its practitioners are called wildcrafters, foragers, or herbalists. So what is ethical wildcrafting? At first glance, wildcrafting seems to be perfectly in harmony with nature. What could be more natural and resourceful and sensible than going out and finding your own herbs and plants in the wild where they grow? It's a little bit more difficult than that, though, because if you're looking at over-harvesting, and by over-harvesting, you could be killing the plants and then them not be able to propagate again. You can be taking food away from the wildlife, and so you have to be kind of careful. You need to know your harvesting needs and how much are you going to use in a year. You also need to know how are you going to preserve it. If you are looking at drying it, or if you're looking at freezing them, or if you're looking at making them into tinctures or something of that nature, those are things that you need to have in mind when you go, so you don't harvest this great lot of herbs and then turn around and end up throwing them away because they weren't processed properly. It is, you need to also know that you're respecting the property owners' places and their what they want to have done in their yards. And you need to know the rules of the government landholders as well. There is a website that is called Threatened and Endangered Plants. It's from the USDA, and the website is https://plants.usda.gov/threat.html. And you can go into this page, and it's a pretty amazing little setup there. You can look at what is being overharvested in Washington State, or in any other area that you're going, or if you're going for a specific plant, you can plug that in and you can find out what it is. Now, in this local area, we've got OSHA is very much, it's been overharvested, and golden seal has been overharvested. Kava kava has been overharvested. And so consequently, when you come into the shop, you see the prices on those. Ginseng has been overharvested. The prices on those herbs are have gone up tremendously because it is because they're hard to get. It is they're now being harvested more sustainably, but it's going to take a long time for them to come back. So that's where we are. So I've got a couple of ideas of how to prepare for going wildcrafting. And then we'll talk a little bit about what you can harvest right now in the spring, or, in the next couple of weeks, okay? So first of all, once you decide that you want to go wildcrafting, you need to be prepared. Okay, you need to make sure that you have the tools and supplies that you'll need. You'll need to have some kind of containers to put your treasures in. Paper bags are a great idea for that because plastic can sweat. And if you put them in plastic and you're out all day, it can taint your herbs. Paper breathes, and so paper bags are a good way to go. You'll want to take a backpack with you, and you'll want to carry a garden trowel for roots that you're looking for. Snippers, so scissors or garden snippers for leaves and flowers. You want to make sure you have a pair of gloves, because if you end up coming across nettles, you want to harvest the nettles, but you don't want to touch it with your hands, so you need to have gloves. A first aid kit is a good idea in the event, because you're out in the wilderness, you could get hurt. Plant books are a really good idea to take with you, because there are so many plants that look similar to each other, and one can be terribly toxic while the other is a great medicine. So you need to be sure when you're harvesting these things that you've got the right plant, that you know exactly what it is that you have. Then, water, snacks, a lunch, if you're planning on being there all day. I generally will bring something as an offering to thank the earth for what I'm harvesting. Oftentimes that'll be water. It is, or another herb that is compatible, because it's right to do that. It is, you want to be careful when you're out there. Okay, this is kind of a precautionary principle and campsite rule that you want to do no harm and leave things better than you found them. Okay, wildcrafting is an important responsibility. If you get it wrong, you could damage or destroy the plants. You could damage or destroy you. You could run afoul of the law. And you could damage other people. So if you're digging roots, you want to make sure that you fill the hole back in after harvesting the roots, so that the next person doesn't come by and trip in your hole, break an ankle. It is, so you don't want to do that, okay? Refill the hole. You can leave the place better by not leaving discarded plant parts. My Aunt Martha, she was my great Aunt Martha, and she lived in Chadron, Nebraska, and we would go to the grocery stores, her grocery store there, and she would buy mushrooms, and what she would do is that she would pick the stem out of the mushroom, so she only had the mushroom cap. And she'd been doing this probably forever, and nobody ever stopped her. But she said that wasn't edible, and so she wasn't paying for it. And she would take the leaves off the cauliflower, because you pay by weight, and she just wouldn't do that. It is, and so whenever I see things like this talking about what you need to do, and if you're cutting too big of a part of the plant, then don't just leave the rest of it there. It is, I think of her, and she was a great lady. It is, now some people will say that it's a good idea if you have seeds, to take and reseed the area. Now, the thing that goes wrong there is you need to make sure that what you are planting isn't invasive and isn't going to take over and kill everything that's around. It is, so if you decide to do that, be very careful about what it is you plant. It is, you need to know your plants. Check out where the, if it's endangered or not. Know that yarrow looks very, very similar to poison hemlock. So you could be thinking, okay, I'm getting this yarrow and this is wonderful. And then you go home and you make a tea, and that's the end of you, because you got hemlock instead of yarrow. It is, if you are not positive what it is, don't pick it. One of the things that you can do if you are looking at plants that are on the endangered list, go to Google and find out what are other plants, what are substitutes that will work with that. It is, they've got, there's a lot of, OSHA is used for your lungs and your respiratory system, but so is lungwort, and so is pleurisy root, and so is mullein. And so those aren't as endangered as OSHA. Go get the, have OSHA for the big guns, but use the other herbs more, more normally, because they're going to, those are sustainable. Okay, Oregon grapefruit can be used instead of golden seal. And it is, so there are, and even in my shop, I mean, you can get the Oregon grapefruit for something like $5 an ounce, and the golden seal is $20. So it's going to help your pocketbook as well. So look at what it is that you are, that you're look at the plants. You also need to know the land that you're working on. You need to know that the land itself is healthy. You don't want to harvest on land that is near busy roads and power lines, because they're often exposed to toxic pollutants and pesticides. If the land once hosted an industrial site, it is best to steer clear. North Everett housed a smelter from 1894 to 1912. Emissions from this smelter caused arsenic, lead, and other associated metal contamination to the surrounding areas. So the government was finally informed of this in 1990. In 1999, cleanup was started, and they're still doing cleanup. 2019, they dug a lot of the dirt out of Wiggum's Hollow Park here in North Everett and Legion Park in North Everett because of the high arsenic levels in it. Now, you don't get arsenic through your skin. So, I mean, if you're playing in the dirt and stuff like that, you're going to be fine. But plants that grow in there take the nutrients from the earth, and so that would be like eating the dirt. And so you don't want to get anything from those parks or any place that has that kind of pollutant stuff. Now, the Everett Parks and Rec, and I know this to be true because I actually called them, at Langus Riverfront Park, they have amazing wild roses there, and they have the rose hips on those roses are beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous. So I called Parks and Rec to ask, do you use pesticides on these things? And they told me that they use pesticides on anything that's any part of the park that has the wood chips on it. So they have all of these beautiful roses in a bed with wood chips, and the wood chips are sitting on top of pesticides. So you don't want those. That's part of knowing what it is that, where the land is and what it is that you want to do. You want to make sure that you know what kind of wildlife is in the area that you are foraging. That's part of it is for your safety. I mean, if there's big cats out there, you don't want to be doing it. And I know that several years ago, Kara and I went horseback riding up in the hills in Arlington, and as we were going in the trails, there were other people coming out, and they said to us, "You don't have a gun?" And I said, "No, we don't have a gun." And they said, "Well, pay attention to your horse. If your horse starts acting spooky, get out of there. There's a couple of big cats out here." So we do have them out here. And with people not going out into the forest as much, they are, the animals are coming in closer. So this year in particular, you're going to want to be a little bit more careful for your safety. But also, you don't want to destroy their habitat. So that's another part of knowing what's out there, is to know what to look for. It is, pay attention if you go out years running, how your foraging is affecting that land. If you come back, Christmas trees. I've lived here in Washington for 42 years. And when we moved up here, we started going into the mountains to cut down our Christmas tree. And we would go up there, and it used to snow here a lot more than it did. So we would go up there, we would play in the snow, we'd buy our permit from the ranger station, and then we would go cut down our Christmas tree and bring it home and set the tree up. Now, the thing is that over this 40 years, it is really hard to find a nice tree anymore. And it is, so what has happened is they've been over-harvested. And they're selling too many permits. So I will tell you, we still go up to the mountains the weekend after Thanksgiving, but now I use a tree that is still up in the corner over there. I use, but it's obviously, since it's still up and it's March, it is an artificial tree, and that way I'm not cutting down another tree. Know the rules. You obviously don't trespass on private property. On public lands, wildcrafting is often prohibited or strictly limited. You need to talk to the National Park Service and the local ranger, and they can give permission for you to take whatever it is that you're looking for, but you need to make sure that you talk to them and get that. Again, usually you want to talk to them also about, are they spraying on any trailheads or anything of that nature. Be aware that there are laws, and they can be pretty harsh. So in California, if you are caught illegally wildcrafting, there's a $1,000 fine. It is, so you don't want to do that. It's also a good idea to, if you need a permit, find out if you need a permit and carry ID with you. It's just to be kind of on the safe side. All right. Now, when you're harvesting, you need to look at how much you're harvesting. It is, you want to take, you don't want to take more than 10% of what is there. Okay, because you have to leave some for the next wildcrafter. You have to leave some for the animals that eat those kind of foods, and the ones that live in, the bugs and worms and stuff, and everybody that lives in that habitat, they need to have some. You need to have some left to reseed itself. And so 10% is a good number of what to take. It is when I wildcraft, I do it in kind of more of a shamanic way. It is, I first ask the plant, I need you for my medicine chest. Can I harvest some of your leaves or fruit or whatever that it is that I'm looking for? And it is, and if I get the feeling that the plant is okay with that, then I am going to go ahead and harvest. It is, I try to do it in the least painful way. I mean, I'm not going to grab it from the ground and rip it up. And then I will say thank you. And depending upon where I am, I will leave a tribute of some nature. Sometimes it will be a stone. Sometimes it'll be some water. It's dependent upon where I'm going. I mean, if I'm going harvesting over in on the other side of the mountains, water is helpful because they don't have as much rain as we do on this side. If I'm over here, water isn't as necessary because we have plenty of water. But so maybe I'll take a stone with me, or I will take a little bit of another dried herb that I would leave. It is, you need to make sure that you are grateful for what they're giving you. So, those are some good ideas for what you need to know and how to do it. So, in the springtime, what are we going to be looking for? So, basically, you're going to be looking for leaves and flowers. Now, some, as you get further into summer, there'll be a couple of roots that you can pull. Usually the roots you want to take in the fall, but because that's when all of the plant energy comes back down into the roots. Right now the plant energy is in growth of the greenery and the fruit. But things like dandelion, you can use the entire plant. So you can use the flower, the leaf, and the root. Now, dandelions have a short shelf life because they don't grow as much as, throughout the year. And so you're going to want to make sure that before you get to midsummer, you've got all the dandelion that you need, especially if you're going for the root. Okay, so dandelion can be used. The leaves can be used to make a pesto or to be put in a wild green salad. The flowers can go into a salad. The root is a coffee substitute. You can roast it just like you would roast coffee beans. Medicinally, it clears out the liver and the kidneys and is a diuretic. So, and that you can get in your own backyard. It is, that's a pretty good one. So, raspberry leaves. Obviously, later in the summer, you'll get the raspberries, but the raspberry leaves are used for the female reproductive system throughout the whole cycle of your life. If you are, when you're on your moon cycles, if you suffer from PMS, it will help the PMS. When you are pregnant, it helps prepare your body for delivery. My 4 kids just fell out because I drank raspberry leaf tea all the time, and so I didn't really have hard labor at all. When you're going through menopause and the perimenopausal symptoms, it will help with those as well. So that's something that is always a good thing to have on hand. Blackberry leaves will stop diarrhea and dysentery. It is magically, they can be used, the leaves can be used like nettle leaves in a protection spell or in a circle around your house. And nettles. Nettles is a superfood. It is packed full of vitamins and minerals. It strengthens your bones. It's an antihistamine. And it can be used in cooking like spinach. It has a taste that is a little bit reminiscent to me of artichokes, that buttery kind of taste when you are when you're making something really strong like soup or like a decoction. It is, and nettles is one of the reasons why you want to have gloves in your kit, because you don't want to pick them with your bare hands. Chickweed is a good spring vegetable or spring herb, and it also can be used in salads and pesto. Medicinally, it soothes the respiratory infections. So there's another substitute for OSHA. It heals minor wounds and dissolves toxins and fatty materials in your body. So it's a little bit of a detoxifier. Miner's lettuce is primarily a food and can be used the same way as spinach. It is either cooked or raw. Wild violets, both the leaf and the flower, you can infuse into vinegar for salad dressing. You can use it to add color to your tea. You can, medicinally, it is an antioxidant and an anti-inflammatory and a blood cleanser. We've got a couple more that are here as well. So, violet leaf and violets make a great honey cough syrup if you infuse it into honey. Okay, red and white clover, both the leaf and the flower, you can infuse in honey, and you can add to baked goods, and that's another blood cleanser. Purple dead nettle, and they say, the people that write all the herb books, say that the reason it's called purple dead nettle is because it looks just like nettle. It doesn't look at all like nettle, but it grows as prolifically as nettle. And you can use that in a wild green salad or a pesto. Medicinally, it is an astringent, a diuretic, and an anti-inflammatory, an antibacterial, and an antifungal. And if you look back earlier in this pandemic closure, we talked about purple dead nettle, and we made a salve, I think is what we made with it. So there's even one of the things that you can do. Now, fiddlehead ferns. Fiddlehead ferns are a great food source with a high antioxidant content that has the ability to help fight some cancers, and it boosts your immune system. Now, some varieties of fern can be toxic, so you need to know what you're picking. Okay, now ramps are mostly harvested on the East Coast, and it's on the endangered list. And it is, and what they are is, it's like an onion substitute. It is, but when restaurants started doing local sourcing and from farm to table kinds of things, the ramps got highly over-harvested. If you find some ramps and you choose to do them, the way you need to harvest them is they come from a bulb, just like an onion, but it's the leaf that you eat. So you cut it, so the leaf comes off, but the bulb stays in the ground to regrow again. Okay, so make sure if you are finding ramps, that's what you're doing. Cattail shoots and pollen. The tender shoots are very good for greens, and they taste really good. And the pollen comes late spring and early summer. That's the cattail part, that's the brown part at the top. And that can be used as a substitute flour. So it can be used as a thickener, or it could be used if you have enough that you could make, a small loaf of bread or something of that with it. The jelly that comes between the leaves is a powerful analgesic and can be both ingested or applied topically to relieve pain and inflammation. And it prevents anemia. Now, wild asparagus is the same as garden asparagus, and it looks the same as garden asparagus. It's just growing out in the wild instead of in a farm. Henbit, which is very similar to purple dead nettle, can be used raw for pesto, and it is an anti-rheumatic, and it relieves a fever, and a laxative. Now, garlic mustard is known to be an invasive plant, and so you don't have to be quite as careful when you're harvesting it, because it comes back all of the time. It can be used as an antiseptic for wounds and eaten as a diuretic. It's rich in vitamins A, B, C, and E, and it has a garlicky taste that is, I love garlic, so you can't say enough about it. Yarrow is bitter, and so it's more often used as a medicine than it is as a food, but it is edible if you're good with bitter. It's used for treating fevers and coughs and to help stop bleeding. So if you're cut yourself and you're out in the woods and you're bleeding and you find some yarrow, go ahead and pack the yarrow onto the cut, and it'll help stop the bleeding. Now, here's the thing, though, that you need to actually realize is that it is very similar and can be mistaken for poison hemlock. So again, you have to make sure you know the difference between the two so you know what you're looking at. Plantain is edible and medicinal. It can be eaten when it's young, and if you get a bug bite or a bee sting and you chew up one of the leaves and then put the chewed up leaf on your bite, it'll stop the itchiness and it will help to heal wounds. Cleavers is highly nutritious, and it's good for your lymphatic system. So once you're out there, then you figure out, okay, now what am I going to do with these herbs? And you can bring them home, and if you've got a dehydrator, you can throw them in the dehydrator. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can tie them up and hang them from a clothesline or something of that nature, and you can let them air dry. And I usually do some of that anyway, is some of the air drying, and it is, I've got a couple of dollar store finds that I found years and years ago that are, they're supposed to be used in the bathroom, and it's supposed to be a clothesline, but you couldn't put anything on that because the plants even make it really drop. But it is, it's a little round circle with a rope inside of it, and you stretch it across and put it like over your bathtub. And I've got two of those, and then I've got a towel hanger that comes up like that. So you have these parts that are hanging loosely, and that's those I put the generally leaves on that as well. So that's one way that you can do it, and it doesn't have to have a big infusion of money to get started. It is because you can just hang them anywhere, on your windows, something of that nature. That's what I've got for you today on wildcrafting. If you have any questions, please put them on this tape or on this page, and I will answer them. I will also put the URL for the plant savers so that you will have it documented and you can find it on here. Saturday is a new moon, so we'll be doing the new moon at 6 o'clock. And then next Saturday, the 20th, is going to be Ostara, the vernal equinox, and we'll be doing ritual at 7 o'clock. So the what you need for that would be seeds, even just one, a little pot to plant the seed in, a goal that you want for the next 6 months, and the dirt to plant it in, and a yellow candle. And if you don't have a yellow candle, a white candle will work. I hope to see you there. And just a reminder, the shop is open. It's open from Tuesday through Saturday from noon until 5. And if you can't get in but you need something, give me a call because I can ship it to you. Okay? So there's my commercial for today. Thanks very much for joining with me today, and I hope you had a good time. Take care.